When you started looking upon one of the most horrible diseases to human beings, not only to women, but mostly to women, breast cancer, what went on inside of you? Was it a personal engagement? Did you know people who died from breast cancer? Or why did you engage yourself?
It was a personal experience with breast cancer. I was diagnosed with the disease the first time in 1996. So it was then that I made a decision, as many other, I think, women do, that when something like that happens to you, you either can spend the rest of your life angry and saying, why did this happen to me? Or you can use that personal experience into bringing about change. And at that time in my own country, in Cyprus, there was very little available for women. There was very little available of information and support groups. And that's how it started to make a difference and share.
To you especially, a difference, yes.
To women in my country,
Okay.
but also in Europe, because
Okay.
I think that it's a disease that doesn't have any differences according to religion or boundaries or culture. Breast cancer affects women no matter where they live. But it's also a disease that we know a lot about, and there is a very high survival now of this disease, providing women have the right access to the right services.
That's one part of your recommendation in your report to the Council of Europe's Parliamentary Assembly. But I was shocked by the figure that almost every 10th woman can be struck by that disease.
That's the figures of the European Union countries of 28. 1 in 10 women by the age of 80 will possibly have been diagnosed with the disease. This is a very high figure. We also have a lot of younger women with diagnosed under the age of 40. But this is a disease, a type of cancer that we know a lot about. And I think that from the moment that we know what we can do to reduce mortality, yes, we may not be able to stop, to prevent it as a disease, but we can do a lot to make sure that the women and the fewer men that are diagnosed it have the best chances of survival.
And it's one of the most common ways of cancer.
It is the most common cancer in women and the highest in terms of mortality for women.
The figure within the EU was almost 370,000 people in 1 year.
Yes.
I mean, it's incredible. How do you foresee that such an illness can be diagnosed at the right time?
First
what
of all,
does it take?
It takes countries and governments to invest on having national screening programs and then to have the strong groups that will advocate for women to actually go and be screened. Because one problem is, even where the programs exist, the level of awareness that this can happen to you is not as high as it should be. So women, either because they're frightened or because they think this doesn't concern me, they don't go for their screening. And we do know that if you have early diagnosis, you have better chances of survival.
Yeah, but this screening has also been a little bit problematic.
It is controversial. There has been a lot of discussion about it. But for the moment, we do know that the best we have is mammography screening. But for this to be effective, it has to be in organized population programs and following guidelines. It cannot be just opportunistic mammography screening. So this is what we as advocates and as Eureporter, which is the European Breast Cancer Coalition, of which I'm a member, this is what we're trying to get governments to realize.
But how do you make sure that the differences between the member states of both the European Union and the Council of Europe aren't that great, so to speak, that you cannot have a program. You have to take special care of the program in this or that state.
Well, at this moment, there are huge disparities in the quality of care for screening and care, not only across boundaries, but even within countries. And
how comes?
Because there is a different level of investment in different countries, and breast cancer is not always the first thing on the health agenda. I think it's very important to realize that we do have scientific evidence now which shows what we should be doing. And this is what we need to try and implement. The European Union has had 2 resolutions passed, one in 2003 and one in 2006, laying out what the member states need to do. This was my aim, and something that I hope will be successful, to do the same for the Council of Europe, because here we are many more member states. And the member states... 47. And the member states who are not in the European Union, their governments and their national parliaments, though the resolutions were not really relevant to them. But hopefully we will give parliamentarians something that they can go back to their own national parliaments and say, this is what we need to do for women in our country, to be able to face this disease and to be able to increase the chances of survival for the women diagnosed with it.
In order to prevent instead of cure, shall already at school young both girls and boys be informed?
Yes, there is now evidence, because we hear a lot of rumors about what not to do to avoid breast cancer, which are not scientifically based. But there is now very strong evidence that lifestyle factors and changes can reduce your risk. So women and young women who exercise regularly have a much lower risk of developing the disease.
But it's also a question of food, isn't it?
Food has been less proved. It's exercise, it's obesity, so yes, food is related there for postmenopausal women, and also the level of alcohol that women use. And unfortunately, a lot of young women are consuming very high levels of alcohol socially now, and this may be increasing their risk when they're older.
Are there any kind of prevention which could be done while a woman is pregnant?
No, other than a healthy lifestyle,
okay.
no.
There are no studies in...
No, but we have women, although in the past it was considered that if you have had breast cancer, you would not then be able, it would not be safe to have children.
Yeah, that has been
We have
turned
women,
around.
yes, it has been turned around. We have a lot of younger women that go on to have their families. So it's a different face of this disease, and it's time we stopped fearing the word. And the word cancer brings huge fear. But if we actually look at the realities, for many types of cancer, but especially for breast cancer, we need to look at survival.
As I indicated at the very beginning, it can also hit men.
Yes.
And that's very unknown. Can a man do anything he cannot have this kind of screening?
No. No, men do not go into screening programs, but I think what you said is absolutely true. Because it's unknown, and of course it's a very small percentage, 1 to 2% of all the cases. Because it's unknown though, men themselves, if they find a lump or something, don't think it could be breast cancer, and even the medical profession misses it. So we're also raising awareness about for the number of men, the small number of men, that you need to know that this can happen because we have a lot of later diagnosis in men because the men themselves are not aware they could be at risk.
So a final line, what do you want to achieve by the report you have made here for the Council of Europe?
I would like to, this report, if it is approved, I hope it will be approved, to be the voice of women and men in their national parliaments. A tool by which we can put breast cancer on the priority of the health agenda of all the member states of the Council of Europe, and in this way bring about change.
Is there the campaign, the Pink campaign, a part of how people can be more aware, or has it become a little bit too popular?
Some think it's maybe a little bit too pink, but I think pink is not about the color itself. It's about an attitude. And it's about an attitude that we want to advocate and change the realities of this disease. So raising awareness, involving people, making them part of this effort will only result in bringing about change. And I think that this is what we're there to do.
And you're wearing it yourself?
I wear it all the time. Yes.
I wish you luck.
Thank you so much. Thank you.